Everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today, guys, we're gonna talk about a book that I just couldn't make it through. I tried so hard, and it's a library book too, so it's so late, but I just could not get through it. And that book is The Painted Devils by Margaret Owen. This is actually a sequel, so what I would like to do is quickly talk about the first book, just kind of explain the plot so you can understand the plot of the second book, talk through some of the things that I enjoyed, because there were some things that I was all about, and what didn't work for me and why I just couldn't make my way through this book so I can return it to the library, because again, it's so late. So anyway, the first book in the series was The Little Thieves. I read this book 2 years ago, I think. It was actually one of the first books that I wrote out a review for and was planning to film. And I just wasn't ready to dive into the YouTube world yet, so I never ended up actually filming a review for this one. But I did really enjoy this book. So the main character in this story, Vanja, is she's like a maid in a castle, and she was raised by death and fortune. There's a lot of like low gods, higher gods, goddesses in these books. So she was the 13th child of a 13th child. She was abandoned and adopted by death and fortune, and she was raised by them until they found like a placement for her, essentially as a maid. She was physically abused at some point, some attempted sexual abuse as well, and eventually she used these pearls that allowed her to disguise herself as this like heiress who was supposed to be marrying this this very high-ranking guy. And so she was able to pretend that she was both her and her maid, and it was this very complex like scheme she had going on. She was stealing from some of the other nobles, and she had kind of orchestrated all of this to kind of put herself in a position where she was safe and taken care of and all of that stuff. And in doing so, she took this heiress Giselle and kind of just kicked her out, and she had to live on the streets for a little bit and all these things. So that's kind of like the basic plot of the story. As things are happening, there are these investigators called Prefects who are sent to kind of figure out what's going on and deal out justice in the court of the low gods if necessary. One of the prefects ends up being killed. So Vanja and Emeric and Giselle, who comes back from being kicked out onto the streets, and a couple other characters all work together to figure out like what is going on. The lord of the castle, Adelbrecht, I think is his name, is doing some pretty shady things, and so they're able to outsmart him and save the day and all of that stuff. So that's kind of the very like light, probably a little bit confusing explanation of the first book. I'm sure there were details that I missed and got wrong. Like I said, it's been a while, but I did enjoy it. I was interested in whatever adventures could happen next. As far as I knew at the time, it was the only book. I didn't know that there was going to be a sequel. And a few months ago, oh my gosh, yes, a few months ago, that's so sad. Oh my gosh, I've had this book forever. A few months ago, I went to the library and I saw that the sequel was out, and I decided to pick it up. And finally started it, and I loved the beginning of this book. So this book takes place about 3-ish months after the first book, maybe a few more months. It's not a very long period of time. But Vanja is now living in this other town, and she accidentally started a cult. I thought that was hilarious. Like, what a funny way to start out this book. So she had all these rubies that she was using to kind of travel. She was attempting to find her family, any family members that she could find, parents, siblings, anything like that. So she ended up like dropping them and created this entire like story to try to get some of the villagers to help her fish these rubies out of the stream. And it ended up turning into her being the priestess for the Scarlet Maiden. They had this like altar that she created, this statue, and she kind of like rigged it to make it like cry red tears and like all of these crazy things. Like she really went all out in establishing this cult. And after this has all been created, they're like feeding her, they're giving her a place to stay, clothes, all of this stuff, because they think she is, you know, the messenger of the Scarlet Maiden, whoever that is. Emeric, the prefect from the first book, and her love interest shows up and is like, you started a cult? Like, what happened in the 3 months that you were gone? You just kind of said, hey, I'm out. I need to find my family. Sorry, I'll explain later. Hey, you left a note that said, I'm going to find my family. Sorry, I'll meet you here. Disappeared and started a cult. Like, what happened? So I loved all of that. I loved hearing her explanation of how it accidentally happened, his confusion at what was going on. He is not he's not a full prefect yet. He's like a junior prefect. And so he has this like final mission that he has to do to prove that he can do the job, which again is just kind of like investigating something that's going on and then delivering justice in the court of the low gods if necessary. So he's like all confused by what's going on. And when he shows up, the Scarlet Maiden just appears out of nowhere. She's real. Like, it was, how funny is that like Vanja created this cult for this like made up, what she thought was a made up person, and she ends up being like a real deity of some kind. And so she says like, hey, your devotion isn't enough. I'm going to need a sacrifice. And she picks Emeric. So she puts like a red handprint on his chest. She's like, this one's not claimed. He's going to be my sacrifice at the, I want to say like the Harvest Festival. And I'll like continue to bless and protect the village, etc. So they're all confused by what just happened. Vanja especially, because as far as she knew, the Red Maiden did not exist. And so they do a little more investigating and discover, as not at this point, they have not discovered who the Red Maiden actually is, but they discover that she is somehow protecting the town. She's not able to continue to do that without a sacrifice, so she needs somebody who is not claimed. And of course, by not claimed, that means somebody that is a virgin, of course. And so they're like, hey, any chance you would take a different sacrifice? Like, does it have to be that? So she says, fine, if you can give me the blood of 7 brothers, I'll accept that. It's not the best, but it'll work. And so then it becomes a quest to find the blood of 7 brothers, which unsurprisingly, there are 3 members in the town who are from a family that does have 7 brothers. So it's just a matter of traveling around to get the blood of the rest of them. And it's not much, it's like a pinprick on a napkin, like that's it. And so where I kind of stopped the book, they were on their way trying to find the rest of the 7 brothers. I think they had 2 or maybe 3 where I stopped reading. And that's kind of where I lost interest. So again, the whole accidentally started a cult and then it turns out to be like a real deity of some kind. They're not entirely sure she's a goddess or what she is. Hilarious. I thought that was so funny. Like, typical of Vanja, she's a planner. She always tries to think of everything. And just the fact that she ended up becoming this like messenger to the Scarlet Maiden is just so her. The reason that I think I was really not enjoying this book is, as I said, Emeric gets picked as a sacrifice because he is unclaimed. And so I feel like the rest of the book is like trying not to be certain genres and tropes, maybe is the best way to say that. I'm not entirely sure how to explain what I mean. Like, I'll explain, but I don't know how to say it in a short way. Obviously, I love a good romance. I'm all about a romance book. This to me is not a romance book. That's not the main plot of the story. It's adventure, possibly a heist, I'm not sure. The last book was very like heist heavy, so maybe that's the direction we were heading. It's not a romance book, but it felt like it was trying to be a romance book, but then like, oh no, that's too much. Like, it was almost like the author was like trying to do that and then realizing that that's not the audience they were writing for. So the rest of the story from them finding out that Emeric is going to be the sacrifice and that they need the blood of the 7 brothers to them going out to find the blood of the 7 brothers is basically just Vanja and Emeric talking about like, yeah, we're in a relationship, but like, what are we doing? And like, it was almost like it wanted to be smut without being smut, if that makes any sense. Like, it was like, I almost feel like it would have been better if it just was. Like, if it just like embraced the fact that that was the direction it was heading. Like, let's just call it what it is and move on, you know? But it was kind of like everything just felt like this is the direction that we want to go, but we can't because that's not who this book is written for. So it was just a lot of like hot and cold, like, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? Where are we going? What's next? And I mean, even the fact that like Emeric is the sacrifice because he's unclaimed. Oh, what do we do? I mean, I guess you can give the blood of 7 brothers, like whatever. Like, it was such like a almost like a throwaway, like here's an out. I don't know. So I just felt like it was trying to be really romance heavy without being romance heavy. It was trying to be like just too many things. I feel like the romance should have just been very much a side story, and it was taking over too much of the plot, taking away from like the adventure that was in the first book, the heists, and it just wasn't working for me. So I gave it a really good effort. I got several hundred pages through. They were, as I said, they were looking for these other brothers. They were visiting this library that had this spirit that was like kicking people out because some rich noble snob had stolen this like chalice that the ghost was supposed to protect. They ended up carrying around this doll with a ghost inside of it, and she would like peek out of the bags that she's being carried in. Like, there were some other really interesting parts of the story, but it just kept coming back to like, okay, now we're in our room, what are we gonna do? And like, is it romance? Is it not romance? Like, what's going on here? How far are we going? Like, oh no, we need to step back because this is not an adult book. Like, it was just a lot. It was a lot. And like, they kept talking about it too. And again, like, if it's smut, just call it what it is, you know? So yeah, it just didn't work for me. Not to say that it wouldn't work for everybody, but I ended up deciding that there were plenty of other books that I had that I would rather read. I should return this to the library. That would be the responsible thing to do. So I'm just gonna DNF and just say that's all. So again, I really did enjoy the first book, Little Thieves. I thought it was great. So I highly recommend checking out Little Thieves. And if you really enjoy Little Thieves, maybe check out Painted Devils. Maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did. And if you have read Painted Devils, I would love to hear your thoughts, some of the things that you really enjoyed about it, and maybe some of the details that I'm missing because I am not going to finish the book. But that is everything for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.